Welcome to the Madison Park Podcast. We're so glad you're here. Join us each week as we recap messages and take a deeper look at what God is doing in the community. For more information, find us on socials or visit madisonpark.church.
Welcome to the Mad Park Podcast. This is episode 10.
Episode 10.
I know.
Double digits.
We are,
Yay.
and we're right in the middle of November. I think this counts as the middle.
Yeah,
The 14th?
Sure. We have made it to double digits. Double
Right.
digits. That's a celebration.
Yeah.
So welcome everybody. If this is your first time with us, give us a little subscribe in the old YouTubes. That's right. Put an S on it because I love it. But just check
quite
out
puberty
back
yet.
here. What?
We haven't hit puberty yet. We're still 10.
Yeah, we are still 10. But 10's good.
Is that just how I
10's
view
good.
everything right now? Because I have a son
Well, how old is he?
that is 13, and we're in. Puberty is in full effect.
That's fair.
That's nice.
So,
Today's episode is called Puberty.
well, we're actually, this would be our pre-pubescent episode.
This is our tween episode.
Yeah,
Nailed
tweens.
We're growing up. Life is hard. So how you guys doing? How was your week?
Good.
Good.
I mean,
It was a week.
yeah, nothing much.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Here's what I'll say. This is the conversation that I've been having frequently at the church, at home. When do you set up for Christmas? When Thanksgiving is the last week of November.
I have very, very passionate feelings about
I
this,
know.
so I'm going to let everyone else answer. Also, does it
Get
look
ready.
like we don't want to sit next to each
I know
other?
I've been thinking that this whole time, but I really just like an armrest.
Me, same.
And I'm not.
So let's just
Okay.
establish that we just like armrests,
Yeah.
but we actually we really have
We
good
feel it.
feelings about each other.
Yeah.
It's really just,
Your hands are nice and cool.
well, thank you.
So how do you guys feel about
I have strong
Thanksgiving?
feelings. Okay, but you guys answer first because I want to.
So my husband is very staunchly team real tree. I've tried multiple times to
Oh,
get
really?
him to jump on the artificial bandwagon, and he will not. So we have to wait until later anyway.
Yeah, they don't-
because they don't last very long. So, and I want it to at least be up like a little bit after Christmas because it's so sad to take your Christmas decorations down. And if it's like, well, tree's dead, got to take it down December 26th, I will cry. So we wait a little bit.
That's fair.
Yeah. It is for that reason that I like to set it up early. It's work. And I don't like to do it for just a very short period of time. I normally already have it up, but I've just been too busy. So my plan is this weekend to at least get the tree up. Yeah. Although we have a fake one. We used to do a real one and a fake one. Now our house, we just do one. But I was looking online at like real tree farms because I'm also looking for a 20-foot tree, real tree. Anyone listening? If you could help us find a 20-foot tree, I'd love it for the lobby here. A whole other
Well,
issue.
20 feet or more.
Or
20
more.
feet is like the
Or more.
shortest. The shortest.
I'd like to put one in the lobby. But tree farms here don't even open till November 29th. What is that even about?
See, now here's the
That's
fun
wild.
thing about our real tree. My dad is super obsessed with trees. So he planted a bunch of Christmas trees when Jacob and I got married. And now I can go to my parents' house and cut down our Christmas tree at my family home, which is so fun.
sweet.
So
Dang.
When does he open?
he opens whenever I say,
Or any of them
hey,
20
Dad,
feet
I
or
want to
bigger.
cut down a tree. We actually already scoped out our tree, so we know where it is. But yeah, just whenever. He's like, come cut it down.
What do you do?
Well, so we've had an artificial tree,
Yep.
but we had an apartment, so we had like a little 4-foot tree.
Yeah.
So now we need to find a big tree.
Yeah.
So that's our current hunt. But I'm team after Thanksgiving, but keep it up in at least a week and a half into January. Because
I'm with you
January I
on
think
that.
is the most depressing month.
Yep.
So I need the tree
Yeah,
to
I
keep
usually
me
Amen.
out of seasonal affective disorder.
I actually had mine up one year till into February.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
I say you just keep leaving it up and just change the
But that was just-
decorations.
It was just lazy. I just couldn't. It was too much work to take it down.
I do
sure.
love
Yeah,
the
that's fair.
idea of this is my 4th of July tree.
Yes, exactly. Just throw some
Yeah.
hearts on it. Valentine's Day. There you go.
The Valentine's
Exactly.
Day. So I'm sure that this is a real thing for everybody, but so my kids are 5 and 2. And so Ivy, my oldest, is asking all these questions about why do we do whatever.
Yeah.
And she's also starting to study history in school. And so you start trying to explain the Christmas tree. It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
The more that you try to explain, no, we go and cut a tree down. put it in our house.
Yes.
So we'll never grow again.
And we have to keep watering it.
We have to, yeah.
You got to water it.
Yep.
And all those pine needles are going to get everywhere.
Yeah. And
Don't be barefoot.
so she was like, what did they do before electricity? And I was like, well, they put candles in it. And she was like, doesn't it catch on fire? And I was like,
Sometimes.
yeah.
Actually, yes.
Why? And she was like, why didn't they stop doing it? And I was like, I don't know. But it doesn't matter now because we don't do that. So
Yeah.
I just feel crazy more and more, which is real life. I will say this, if my wife listens to this, which she won't, I engineered the most ridiculous tree stand after many years of like not wanting to screw around with, I'll tighten it and tilt
Yeah.
it. It has like, I have like an impact driver and it like cinches it.
Oh,
It's
please teach Jacob how to do that
It's
because
intense.
getting it into the stand is the worst.
Okay, so I'm sure you are much better at this, and your kids are old enough. Mine are now old enough that I can do this because I want to, and they're not going to be bothered. But my OCD would kick in when they would hang the ornaments on the tree.
So basically, do you decorate the tree and they see it?
Look. So I had two trees forever. I had like the one that like they would say, "Oh, that's Mom's tree," and then we had another tree with like all of their homemade ornaments and all of like the family ornaments. And so we did that, but now we just have one tree. And so it's been a little bit of a tension inside of me. But see, now they're much older, and so now they do a great job. But when they were younger and they would just put like 20 ornaments on 2 branches, it was just all I could do to just be like, it's fine. It's fine.
So we had like a first happen last year. Naomi was big enough to like walk around, and so she was just picking off the ornaments and dropping them and watching them shatter. And it was like this weird, horrible game of like, don't get glass in your foot. So now, like the bottom half of our tree will have nothing on it.
See,
Yes.
yeah, we're
Like
about
someone
ready to
without
have.
pants.
We're trying to figure out how we're going to protect our tree this year because Cammy is everywhere, and
Yeah.
people have been saying get those like doggy gates, and I'm like,
did
but that's
that.
not aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, it looked horrible. But when they were little enough to like toddler around or crawl,
Yeah.
we had to just ultimately put like a gate around the tree.
Santa will get through. It's
I know.
the presents
He'll
will
make
get
it.
there. It's
I know.
okay.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. I think with Thanksgiving being late, it's like funny. We're gonna set our tree up next week, I think. But
Do you want to talk about whether we think we should be celebrating Thanksgiving, colonialism and all that, or we just want to bypass that for another
oh wow,
episode?
Ooh, that got deep
I'm just
real fast.
kidding. I mean, kind of.
Well,
Book at home.
Just for funsies. Let's do it. No.
well, so I
We don't
went
have to do that.
I went to a Thanksgiving program that my son was a part of, and we live in a world where everything is PC. This was the least PC thing. Like it was so cute, but the whole time everybody was like, if this ends up on the internet, there are gonna be some problems. It was like, they were trying to tell jokes, and you're kind of like,
Oh, you're like, oh, don't
do
Yeah.
it. But it was fun. It was
Yeah.
it was great. So, and then Kingston was asking questions about it. Like they made paper pilgrim hats.
Sure.
You guys have made that. So it's like
Yeah,
a
we did.
paper headband. And then he's like, so we're sitting in the car. He's like, I don't understand the hats. And I was like, well, they were farmers. And he's like, but why is it only on the front? And I was like, no, it went all the way around. He's like, I don't think so. My teacher told me they just wear them on the front like this. Like the hat was just this like 2-dimensional,
Yeah.
like just width and height, doesn't actually cover the head, which I was having to show him pictures of that. And anyway, yeah, that's fun. Kids are fun. We like them. So I'm going to try to keep us on topic
Okay.
today. And I'm going to, if you guys were here with us over the weekend, you probably know we're discussing the first week of Heart of the House, a brand new series here at Madison Park. And we made an announcement, which we're going to sort of talk about at the end. But before we get there, I want to take a slight detour and sort of parallel some ideas. So I had asked Kinsey and Alyssa to think of maybe like a hallmark spiritual moment, because the message started out Sunday sort of talking about what God's done at this church this year. But even bigger than that, like historically with a church that's over 100 years old. And so I want to parallel an idea before we sort of get into maybe the bulk of the message. So I don't know if either one of you, I know I have one in mind, but like maybe a hallmark spiritual moment that's maybe marked your life or your spiritual journey or something like that? Either one of you can go first, or I can go first and you can think about it.
It doesn't matter.
I can't tell. You're both doing your eyebrows like this, and I don't know if that means like go or not. Like
mean,
you
you
literally
can-
went like
I
this, and I
have-
looked over and she went like that.
All right,
like,
Kenzie, you
I have
go.
okay, I'll go. Okay.
Good.
So I grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
So like I always went to church, I was always involved in youth group and Sunday school and all that stuff. But I think there was a real shift in my relationship with God in my sophomore year of college. I had been dating this guy in high school and we were together for a couple years on and off. It was not good. It was not healthy. Lots of issues. But then, and I still like was going to youth group while I was in that relationship. Like in high school, I still went to some things at church, but I wasn't as involved and I didn't seem to like
yeah.
be pursuing God in the way that he was pursuing me.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed when we broke up.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went to Indiana Wesleyan, so I was like immersed in it every day. But then once he and I broke up, I don't even know how it happened or what part of that spurred it, but I got into a routine of praying every day.
Yeah.
And I made like little note cards that I would put on my desk, like right next to my bed. So the first thing in the morning, I would see like a note card that I had made that like the night before that was like a prayer and a praise for the day to immediately pray about when I wake up.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's like morphed into like different ways and strategies that I've used to remember to pray every day. And since then I've gone like through
Yeah.
waves of being consistent with it and not, and all of that stuff, being more involved in devotionals or Bible studies or whatever. And I think it happens like that for everybody. You go through waves and seasons like you've talked about. But just that shift that happened when I was like 19
Yeah.
into me being able to pray every day and actually feel like I was pursuing God.
Yeah.
And like I was like Reckless Love was on repeat. Like that was a big
yeah,
thing
yeah.
for me during that period, which I think that was, I don't know
Yeah.
if that was about when the song came out in 2019. But that I would say was a big like transformative moment
Yeah.
for me in my spiritual journey.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Pain will do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alyssa?
So it was actually when Pastor Heather first came that this is like a moment that has kind of like changed a lot of the way I think about a lot of things. And I think it was the message series on hearing God's voice. Mm-hmm. And there was one service where we were coming back out at the end to do the last song and you were wrapping up and you said like, okay, we're just going to take a minute and let the music play and just like listen for God. Is there something in your life that like you need to give up holding on to or whatever it was? And I remember so clearly, like I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I knew that it wasn't just myself. You know how sometimes you're like, was that God's voice or was that just me like thinking whatever?
Yeah.
And, but I would have never worded it this way. And just, it popped into my head and it had to have been his voice saying, stop trying to make a name for yourself and make my name known. Yeah. And as somebody who comes from a performance background and writing songs and all of that kind of stuff and creativity in a very different way leading up to this, just trying to shift my mindset of like, there are so many people who need to hear the message of God's love and steadfastness and faithfulness. And there's a way to do that in a way that appeals to a wider generation with the style of music that I do. So it was kind of from that moment on that I just felt really on my heart that, you know, trying to write songs about his presence. And from that moment on, it's just kind of changed the way I do my music. And it's been pretty cool.
That's cool. I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have one? Do you have like a Hallmark moment?
Oh.
Because all this all connects like beautifully.
So like all of life or here?
No, it could be just something in your head where it's like automatic. I'm like Hallmark moment, not here. What is that thing? Or one of those things. I'm sure you have more than one. Feel free to say when you hired me or whatever. It's fine.
Honestly,
This podcast.
it was all pretty dark till Steven showed up.
Jeff said the same thing. It was super weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've talked about it in messages, but I think I have. I forget where I talk about things. Like, did I talk about a message? Did I talk about it with a friend? When God called me to ministry,
Yeah.
like on my living room floor in Jeff and I's, it would have been our second apartment. After I'd been a teacher for so many years, and I was reading the book of Isaiah and through Isaiah 61, and I just knew that God said, this is what you're going to do now, like for your, not just calling, but like your work.
Yeah.
And I knew it was like this burning bush moment, which isn't always what happens. I find those to be rare. Usually like you get an impression from the Lord, or you get like a I think, or something like that. But I have a handful of like those burning bush moments when that's just what it was.
Yeah.
And God just broke through confusion, broke through, cloudy, and just put it there on your heart, in your mind. There it is. And that was one of them. And I think I remember it so clearly. I remember how I was sitting, where I was sitting, because it was just so like marking.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I think God sometimes gives like impressions. And then sometimes it's a very direct, like, invitation, like, here.
Yeah.
And it was like very direct.
Yeah, I get that, and I'll keep mine really short. But in a similar way to Kenzie, like that 18, 19-year-old thing, when I went to college, I had no community, and so it was like I like had to actively pursue a relationship with the Lord, and that like really changed it, because it's like, do I actually believe this stuff? Like, I think I do. I've said I do, but it like forced me to that. So the reason I bring all that up is, and this kind of ties in beautifully, but it's like there are so many points in our life spiritually, as we age, as we grow, where our name, how we're known, changes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't undo what happened before that. In some ways, it like solidifies that season. And like as I think about sort of these pivotal moments, like at least for me, it went from like observer to participant, or like from passively following the Lord to actively. For you, it went from like performing to like actively engaging or writing. For you, it's something else. For you, it's something else. But there's like these different seasons, and they don't stop there. Just like I was trying to think of another example. Like you go from like husband to father. Like when you become a father, that doesn't negate the fact that you are a husband or that you were a child. In some ways, it like solidifies the fact that happened.
When I was a teacher before I was a pastor, and when I told everyone that God wanted me to be a pastor, like even my own family,
like, no, that's not right.
they were like,
didn't say that.
They were like, huh.
That makes me so happy.
And I had a family of pastors. Everybody was a pastor. Like, if anything, you would think they would be like, "Well, yeah, it's a family business." But I think
Did
they were
it
like,
get quiet? Did you say it? And they were like,
Oh, okay.
"Who's going to take this one?" I think we're all thinking this.
No, that's great. But yes, no.
Dream big dreams.
I know, but I think it was just such a like what. But everything I was as a teacher, I use it all now. It's all like those years. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do like I do it today.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for nothing. It wasn't, and it's not that I don't think of myself as a teacher, because in many ways I still think of myself as a teacher, and now also.
Yeah. Well, and I think the parallel here is like when like, let's take the father or parent thing, or even like wife or whatever. When you sort of like step into that, if you are a father but keep thinking like you're a kid, you're probably a really bad father. We're like, no, let's jump off of it together. Like, these are matches.
It's so bad that my husband has said that a lot to my
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, let's macro surf down the,
no, this will work. Yeah, but it's that moment where you sort of like embrace the fact that there's all this life experience, there's all these things that God's done, kind of tailors you to this moment. And so the mission doesn't change. You're still like the same person. Who you are doesn't change, but your vantage point is different. And so when you have a different vantage point, you do things differently.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring all that up is if you were here with us on Sunday, we made the announcement that we are becoming Freedom House instead of Madison Park.
That makes me so happy when you say that. It just makes me happy when you go, we are becoming Freedom House. I'm like, oh,
So,
that's right.
Yeah. And this will be like, there's a lot of details that we're going to roll out. And if you want more information, you can go to freedomhouse.church and sign up for the newsletter, which sounds so old fashioned, but it's what it is. But January 1st, we will be Freedom House and no longer Madison Park. That does not negate anything that God has done
Yes.
in the last 100 years. That doesn't negate
Literally.
anything. Yeah.
100.
Over 100,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't negate anything that God did this last year. That, if anything, this is sort of like we're no longer defined by the season that we're in, but stepping into a new one. And so today's podcast is a little bit different. Heather and I were texting as we do. And does that sound weird?
I knew. I thought just roll, so you would just keep going, because then you're going to go, that's so weird. Wait, no, it doesn't sound weird. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
We work together. We text about work.
Yeah, we text things. So anyway, we were
Now
just
it's
texting
weird.
that maybe so we were just texting that maybe we would take the opportunity with the podcast to sort of answer some frequent questions that we have had or we've heard over the last week. And I'm going to preface all of this by saying this one thing. Like, the last week's message was not the series. You definitely need to either watch the next 2 weeks or come the next 2 weeks. We'd love to see your face. But what I would encourage you to do is like take it all in. The other part is like celebrating the reality of what God's doing, because we're kind of changing and growing.
Yeah.
But not, again, I don't want to live in the thing of like, this isn't like a like we just got a bunch of plastic surgery and we look totally different. But this is like sort of honoring what has come before as God's sort of taken us forward in a new thing. So, Heather, do you want to, I know there's been some questions I've had. Do you want to kick it off with like some that you've heard and we can bounce back and forth?
Sure. I don't even know. We didn't really discuss beforehand what the questions.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I mean, we'll just, it's kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
So
Do you want me
Can
to
I say
start? Or are you
crapshoot?
good? You can say crapshoot.
we said prepubescent.
Yeah. I think crapshoot is worse than,
Is it?
You know,
I think,
God doesn't care.
yeah.
Okay.
I think
Thank you.
that-
Thank you for keeping us
So-
on track.
I'm
I'm not the
Kenzie.
pastor here, but I would say
appreciate-
I think he
we're okay.
probably doesn't care.
Okay.
do that.
Actually, I am going to kick it off with one that I've
Let's do
gotten
it.
multiple times
Let's do
while
it.
you're thinking about it. Okay, so if you guys saw the logo, it's Freedom House. In the logo, the F and the H are not capitalized. It's just for the look. If it was on a legal document, it would be capital F, capital H. Heather was a teacher. Trust me, these things bother her
They do.
if it's not intentional, and it was intentional.
Yes,
It's
I've gotten that
stylistically
question of like, why
intentional.
isn't it capitalized? Which I was an English teacher. I just, I can validate maybe a feeling someone might have had when they saw it. It wasn't, but it actually is intentional. And part of it was that in the whole thing, we really wanted something that was like accessible to people, that felt, not corporate or not kind of like this a power font. We wanted something, accessible. That just what word am I? A little warmer. What word am I looking for?
The word that we use internally is human.
That's the word we use.
Where
We do use that word.
Yeah.
It feels human. It feels normal. And so it really wasn't, we looked at several things. It really wasn't that we just liked it. It's that we thought it felt human. And a lot of times when you ask people why they're here or why they keep coming back to this church, they'll say it feels
I'm human.
They don't say I'm human. They'll say it feels human to me. It feels authentic. It feels very honest, or use a variety of words, all like that. And so we wanted something that, kind of symbolically represented that.
Yeah. And I think we've talked a lot about, as we've sort of like looked at the community that we're in, which is a whole nother conversation, but church is sort of irrelevant in a lot of ways. And so giving it a hyper churchy name immediately sort of puts up a barrier. And so part of the thought process was really like, even in the font, does it feel like you couldn't engage it?
Yes.
So
That's a really beautiful way of saying all of the other words that I just said. That was a much better way of saying it.
Well, let's
Thank
end
you.
it there. I think we're good.
And Mark.
Sorry. So that was a real question. So yes, it's technically a proper noun. It would be capitalized.
And I do appreciate the grammar police, because I can be the grammar police.
Yes.
He knows this.
Yep.
Yep, I can get that way.
No, it's not bad.
Well,
It's
but
just-
I do get it. I really do. But I think we really did. It really, in everything, wanted to be very intentional. Like even colors and color palette. Like literally, we took a picture of an Indiana landscape, and like went in and clicked all the colors and pulled out
I love that.
the colors from an Indiana landscape. So like the yellow is actually called maize, and like there's like the fall color. I mean, we directly, but that was
big shout
intentional.
out to Jeff.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. But just to again, just be representative of where we are, of the people, where we live, that it feels accessible, like what he was saying, and all of those things. Yeah.
For it to feel like home.
Yeah.
Like a house, you could say.
Yeah.
Some might say. Some might say.
Yep.
What a beautiful segue. You're good at those. I'm finding that out.
Thank you. I'm also incredibly funny.
Yes. I
Sorry.
love that you said you're funny. I say I'm funny all the time, and people look at me like I'm crazy.
different.
You are.
Yeah,
But
it's
you're
different
funny.
though.
Thank
I
you.
think you should say that.
I am funny.
She really is funny.
See, I'm a
She
little
is. I know
jealous
she
of
is.
people who are funny. I'm the person who laughs at the people who are funny. I'm like your hype guy.
We
the
love
funny,
you.
the funny
Yeah.
people have to have that.
I know. I'm like, I'll be your hype guy.
Not everyone
I
can be
can't.
funny. Who's laughing?
My husband jokes. He's always like, you say like one really hilarious one-liner like once a month. I'm like, oh great, thanks.
So when you say one,
It's really good.
Yeah, you've worked on it for a while. You've been chewing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you wanna go next with a frequently asked
Keep going.
question?
You got another one, or do you want?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
do you got on deck, Steven?
I have what?
What do you got on deck?
I got all kinds of things on deck.
Okay.
So another question that we got was, and I'm gonna try to phrase this in like the most direct way there, instead of maybe the most PC way.
Which I prefer. So
Yes.
thank you.
So somebody asked me what does changing a name do for a church? Like, and there's a couple different angles to that. One of the big ones was like, well, everybody already knows us in the community. This is everything we know. Like, why would we Sorry, go ahead.
No, you continue, but I have a really good thought that I think it's a really good thought.
Okay.
but you go.
The other part was just like, and it kind of ties in what I was saying earlier, but like we have so much history, it feels like we're abandoning that. Do you want to respond to it first? Would you like me to?
You know, I was having a conversation with someone, and they said, changing the name makes it almost feel like it's not home anymore. And here's like, it's a transition, but here's what I think about that. Like, and I said to them, I go, like, I really actually really get that. Like when you go through a significant transition it can feel like, is this still home to me? Like when we moved here, our family, really, really hard because our kids were a little older. It was a tough transition, but God had said, this is what I want you to do.
Yeah.
So we transitioned, but then now this is home. That sometimes I think there are transitions that God calls us to, that can feel weird and wait a minute, we were called this, but now we're called this, and here's where we were, but now we're here. But so I have a lot of, I think, compassion for how that feels. I also know, like my parents have been in ministry, and so they've moved a million times in life. But no matter where they've lived, like they've only lived where they do now for a few years. And my brother and I still say when we go visit, we're going home because it's where my parents are.
Yeah.
So there's our family. So it feels like home, no matter where it's at. So I really do get the feeling of what significant change can feel like. I also know that I think it's really the people that are what makes something home, and I really honestly think that sometimes you have to make it home. Like we have to turn our house into a home when we moved here. That's what we did. And then it becomes home. I don't know if I'm so far off the beaten track from what you're asking or what you're saying, but when they said that to me, I get that.
Yeah.
I really do. And can appreciate the feelings of, but in many ways, all we've done is name the place what it already is becoming. Like it's not so vastly different from what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to let you talk because I have a lot of thoughts on this, in terms of how the community, whether they do really actually know about us or what they think about us or things like that, and how a renaming of the church actually will be really, really helpful with that. Am I answering what you said?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's one answer that sort of hits that, but I think that's a huge part of it because it was asked from multiple angles. It was the same kind of idea.
Yeah. Like, repeat the question for me.
Well, I think the idea was like, why would it be, why is it even important to change a name? And
well, so we've heard this multiple times that we were viewed as the big, rich, white church. Mm-hmm. That's what people thought Madison Park, whether, and you can know that to not be true, whatever, it doesn't matter. Perception has been that and has been repeated from multiple places. And so, in fact, I've gotten more than one time people have said, oh, that sounds like a recovery place or like a rehab. And I kind of feel like, well, that's kind of great. I think that's kind of great. Because I think if you're far from God and you don't associate a church with anything that is positive, mm-hmm. Then I like the idea that we would be associated with a place that somebody could find freedom.
Yeah, and just to like make sure that this is clear, you were saying that Freedom House sounds like what you would want to be known as, not Madison Park.
Yeah, just like if that's like I would imagine if I don't know the Lord, if I have certain ideas of what I think Christians are or I think a church is, Freedom House just evokes a different kind of feeling and a different kind of invitation, I think. And
well, so I had a funny conversation about this where I said Madison Park sounds like kind of like an almost like a state park. And what do you do at a state park? You go and like observe something.
Sure.
But Freedom House is sort of this idea that you come and engage. When you're at home, it's different. You engage with it. You're a part of what makes it a home. And so there's just like this sort of all these little sort of micro shifts. And it's not because we we aren't this. We actually are this already. Like we're
Yeah.
a group of people that is like the church is connected. The church is not a building.
Yeah.
And so it's like this, there's a lot of these micro shifts in the name that feel like not important, but it sort of like it puts your brain in a different place.
To your point, that's really good. It is a lot of different micro shifts, I think, of especially, I think, the mindset that really the building property, like that's not what the church is. Like it's a name isn't even what the church is. It's symbolic, but the church really are the people. But I think that's a shift. We have to make a shift in our thinking and what our mission is. Anyway, I feel bad because I feel like
I feel
I
like
have
you're
something really good to
No,
say.
that's
Yes.
okay.
But I'm
You
wondering,
must say it.
what is this good? Say it. Yes.
Okay, I think it's good. People might think it's silly,
No,
but
I love it.
I changed my name when I got married.
Yeah.
I had a job. Nothing about my job changed when I changed my name. I just
That's
had
fair.
a different email.
Yeah.
So my mission, my job was the same.
Yeah.
Where I worked was the same. Where I lived changed. But
Yeah.
like, for the most part, I was the same person. Everything that I was as Mackenzie Richards is still valid. My degree, my family, where I came from, like none of that goes away. And I don't diminish anything that brought me to where I am. But I changed my name as I entered into this next chapter of my life,
Yeah.
one that God directed me towards with my husband.
Yeah.
And now as Mackenzie Conrad, I'm doing other things
Yeah.
that are still just as great as things I did
Yeah.
Yep.
with a different
That's
name.
awesome. That is really good.
So
Really
it's
good.
like, yeah, legally my name changed, and there's symbolism in that.
Well, there's
But
another layer
things
to your
don't
identity
change.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're married, so you have
Yeah.
you joined together. There's another piece
Yeah.
in the puzzle. I like that. That's
And to
actually
that
really,
point,
really good.
it's a symbol of where you're going now. You're
Yes.
going with your husband, and from somebody who's been at this church for a long time, you know, if we do have a little bit of this identity to the community around us as the big church by the highway,
Yeah.
what better way to invite people in
Yeah.
and to show them that we are becoming Freedom House
Yeah.
Yeah.
than to change a little bit of that image that we
Yeah.
are, you know, putting out by Madison Park, that big church by the highway. We are this Freedom House. We want you to be a part of it. We are seeing people set free. Like,
Yeah.
come join us. I
Yeah.
feel like that
That's good.
brings people in, like we've been saying,
Yeah.
more accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those are amazing realities of like the switch. I'm going to be mindful of time because whoever's watching this is like, wow, we're going long. I got a question and we just talked about this. I'm going to answer it for you, I think,
okay.
because I think it'll be easier. I got a couple questions of like, does this mean we're not going to be a part of Church of God, Anderson, that whole thing?
Yeah.
What I would say is if you ask that question, and I'm not being a jerk at all. I'm saying this, like you should go back and watch the first like 12 minutes of the message. Because it really is sort of this, sort of beautiful presentation of like this thing we've been a part of
Yeah.
and will continue to be a part of.
Yes.
And a name change isn't like we are no longer
Correct.
going to be a part of that. So I'm going to answer that one for you. I know that you
Great.
had a couple frequently asked questions over the last couple days.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Yep.
And I'd really, honestly, to be vulnerable, I'd really tried to make it clear that we are part of Church of God, and it's a beautiful heritage. It's a beautiful theology. It's something that we are a part of, or can continue to be a part of. And I think what's interesting about church history, not just Church of God Anderson, but like these kinds of things, movements, denominations, like they were founded upon deep sets of beliefs, whether it was a theological principle or a belief in like social justice, or these are how these things are founded. And actually, Church of God Anderson founded so much on a principle of freedom, of like, yeah, we really do think that people can hear from the Lord, and that people can be free, and that we're actually called to help set people free. So it's actually a name much rooted to Church of God's roots when the movement was even founded. I can understand the question. I think if you're used to having the name of a movement or denomination in your name and then it's not, it could certainly, raise the question. I'm hoping that we can alleviate any wonderings about that, because we are very much a part of the Church of God, deeply believe in it, and are going to continue to be a part of it, active part of it.
Yeah.
So, I get it, but I think also, and this points back to what we said earlier, I think, just wanted a name that was clear onto what God has called us to be, and all that has brought us to that place. One of those things being Church of God.
Yeah.
But have it be accessible to people.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the other good questions I got is sort of centered around that, was if we were joining the other Freedom House churches, because they Googled it. Just to say it loud,
Are there four? Are there four in the nation,
wow.
maybe?
But here's what I'll say. There's multiple Madison Parks.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't know that, there's a bunch of Madison Park churches.
A ton.
So we were not the only Madison Park. No, we're not. We're not like a satellite campus.
We are not part of any kind
We
of
are
network.
our own thing. Yeah.
And there really is no new name under the sun.
That's true.
I guess you. Now
would
I
you
say that's
Google-
a challenge to
I was
you.
going to say,
know.
will you Google Worm Church? And see if that's a thing?
Do you want me to Google this right now?
Yeah, but
I do, because I haven't Googled it.
Is there a worm church? But I know there are a couple other that exist in the nation, but we're not
Yeah.
associated. Because when we're thinking of the idea, I was curious. I was like, oh, I love Freedom House, and I'd like drawn it and doodled it, and then
Is it real?
Well,
Your face was worth it. That moment.
well, no, because the first thing that comes up is a blog, I think 3 years. Oh, no, it's a post on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X,
Yep.
that says, when I was a kid, I had a game called Church where I'd bring worms to my room and read them the Bible. Yeah, a game called Worm
So we
Church.
could-
so
have gone-
yes, there was a worm church.
At least when Cool Girl Online was a kid.
Sure,
There was
You're
Worm
welcome.
Church.
Thank
Okay.
you, cool girl.
So that's my
Yeah.
first result. I found no other official looking websites.
I appreciate you doing that.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I knew you wouldn't stop thinking about it until you knew the answer.
Yep. Sorry. Are there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that you had a couple
We're
questions.
covering. Really, one of the bigger ones was people were asking about Church of God and, were we going to still align with that, those kinds of things.
So, while you're thinking,
Yeah.
did you have one?
No,
right
go
there?
ahead.
So one of the other things that I think is kind of important, and this is going to come out in a really funny way, but I mean this like truly. We are aware as people that change is not easy.
Yeah.
And so I think that some of the maybe heightened response to this was because people were like, they're just assuming that we have no issues with anything or what. And it really isn't that. I know that even our staff, like even as we were talking about this, like actively, we were all sort of going through this same process of like, well, who are we now? Like values and mission. What is Madison Park even in light of that? And it was like, well, what does Freedom House mean? Well, that really is kind of in line with who we are. We're not
Yeah.
changing who we are. So there's this process that happens. And so that doesn't mean like our expectation is that people have zero issue or anything like that. What I will say is that it, just like any change, it doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect right away.
Well, I want to add this because I think this is really important. So, what is today? Today's Thursday. So over the last few days since Sunday, I think 99 percent, if I had to give it a number, of the responses I have personally received have been overwhelmingly excited.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like some of the things that have been said, like we had one of our students go, "Oh, I love it. This is the first place I've ever been where I feel like I can be me." And I love that now we're going to call it that. We have an older gentleman in our church he was a pastor in Church of God. He's now a retired pastor. But he's been part of this church for decades. And he sent me an email that said the best kinds of names are visionary. That just says, this is who we are and this is where we're going. And yeah, I mean, I had another person send me an email that was like, I'm just so excited that we mentioned the name Jesus as many times as we did in the sermon.
Yeah.
Like that it's just like that's the focus. So honestly, like overwhelmingly it's almost like to some people, it just, when they go, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, well, yeah, I mean, we're watching the baptisms and we're seeing the life transformation and we're experiencing this for ourselves. Oh, I had one lady come find me in the lobby. She's been here maybe less than a year. And she's probably late 40s, early 50s. And she just leaned in to me and she just was so earnest. And she was like, so I really love the name because it means I get to learn how to be free here. She's like, so you're going to keep teaching us how to be free?
Yeah.
But it was just like this very unfiltered thing. So I think it's interesting how people process, but overwhelmingly it's been really, really well received. But even here's the thing about vision, and it's like this with a church or just any organ or any other thing that's not a church, it's just an organization. Like, this is an invitation that we, not just me, but the elder board believed was from God.
Yeah.
And so we said yes to it.
Yeah.
And I've never laid anything that was an invitation from God where there wasn't a little bit of, I don't think I like that, which is actually incredibly biblical. That's the way it was throughout the Bible. But because God has said to do it, we're doing it. And believing that because he said to do it and we've said yes, he's going to breathe on it.
Yeah.
And so we say yes and we do this. And I get it that, I know a question I got. Why didn't we ask everyone what everyone thought we should name? Like, why didn't we have everybody submit
like a church meeting,
kind of your name for the church? And I was like,
because we would get Worm Church.
I know. I mean, it's possible.
It's original.
And I was like, well, there are things we do come together as a church and vote on. Like we're doing that this Sunday with the budget and
shameless plug, annual business meeting, November 17th.
Yes. And the elders, we do have things. We also have elders that are elected by our church family to make these kinds of decisions. So I've been comparing it to like when we had kids and like we named our first kid Eiley. All right. And people were like, Eileen or like Allie, they still call her Allie. I mean, like they couldn't understand why we would pick a name and why we would spell it funny. It's spelled a little funny, and all these kinds of things. But now like that's who she is. Like people just call her that and nobody's like, well, that's weird. So sometimes I think it's just, if you ask everyone, what do you think we should name it? We have a church of about 1,800 different people. Can you imagine?
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine?
It'd be wild.
Wild.
I mean, it sounds kind of fun.
Does
you shouldn't do it.
Does it? Yeah. But
Second Community.
There are actually like Fifth Baptist Church. Like they're actually legitimately like.
What about 1, 2, 3, and 4?
I know. This is Second Baptist. This is Third Nazarene. This is anyway.
I mean, don't you feel like that business meeting was like, if we don't put a stake in the ground as number 5, somebody's going to come along and take that.
And then we're going to be number 6.
I
We
know.
don't wanna be six,
I
you know that.
5 while we
Six.
can.
6 is a horrible number.
It could be 7, but who wants to wait that long?
Exactly.
We'll take 5. Yeah.
But no, I am thrilled about it because I love to see where our story as a church intersects with the biblical story. And when Jesus says, like,
Yeah.
I have come, that they might have freedom, and I'm here to set people free. I'm here for the sick and not the healthy. I'm here, I just think that's what he's wants for the church, why he established the church.
Yeah.
When you go, like, even when he said, I was thinking about this, even when he said to his disciples, so the Great Commission, go and make disciples of all nations. Like, there wasn't a church yet. The Holy Spirit hadn't even come yet. Pentecost hadn't happened. I mean, none of that had happened. And he's like, now you go and do this thing, and they start the church. And so I'd like to look at what was the intention. Well, to go and tell people who don't know about him. And he came that they might have freedom.
Yeah.
And so we're there to lead them to freedom. And I know that I'm trying to make it sound probably more simplistic than it is, but truly that's was our thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna wrap this up with one last question, and I'm totally gonna blindside Heather with this one, which she's gonna hate. But I'm also gonna respond to it, so you don't have to. So one of the questions that we got, one of the questions we got was early. I'm going to say early in the message because I have no idea what the timestamp is. Please, you can go back and watch it. Heather says, one of my responsibilities as a pastor of the church is to plot a course forward.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, well, why is it only her decision? And
It's not.
well, right. And I said, well, let me give you an alternate perspective. It's a coach. So a coach gets hired to lead a team. What's the first thing a coach does? They go, what do you do well? Where do you need help? And you start working on those things. And you go, when we put all these pieces together, what is the game plan?
Yeah.
And so I think the reality is you've been here
almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. I literally held out the word 2 so you could just fill it in.
It'll be 3 years, January 16th.
Not that I'm counting.
Right.
But what a coach does is it goes, here's what you do super well. And we're going to build our game plan around that.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a great example of a coach looking and going, what is God doing here? What is he calling people in this church to do? And now what is our game plan?
Yeah.
And so I think, again, people sort of hear what they want to hear sometimes, but the reality is God's at work here. Sky, who you guys can't see, who's filming this right now, we were looking through some message clips and things, and this year we had 184 people make first-time decisions for Christ, and then over 100 baptisms. So if you think about that, we have 52 Sundays a year. That's like baptizing 2 people a week, which is crazy.
Yeah.
From where we've been. That's not to pat ourselves on the back. That's totally the Lord. We give him all the credit for that. But the reality is that is what God is doing. And so as a coach, and maybe you look at the elders as a coaching staff. Why does that sound wrong? But anyway, it looks at
Just go with it.
Looks like a coaching staff is they go, what is the way forward? This is what you do well as a team, and so this is where we're going to go. And so I think on one hand, you can hold on to whatever you want to hold on to. I think on the other hand is you can go, oh yeah, God is doing that, and we're going to lean into that. Now, here's the other reality. In 10 years, it might be the same players. It could be the same coaching staff, and we might go, we're a lot better at defense now.
Yeah.
So we're going to change the game plan, and that could be something else. So everything is not always and forever, but it is about right now. And I think for me, we just came out of this election season, and everything is on fire and horrible and the worst. And the number one thing that's not relevant is church and whatever. And so, these are the conversations we're hearing.
Yeah.
Yet, I'm looking at what God's done this last year, and you go, except that God's on the move, and we're going forward. And so I would just encourage you guys, even in your own life, look at your small group, your relationships, your family. What has God done in that? And how's the church lined up? That was super long-winded. I don't usually do that. I'm sorry. Do you guys have any closing thoughts? Any good things?
Do you have any
Because I don't know if I'm trying to think if you guys are going to be on before Thanksgiving.
I can be next week.
Yes. No.
I think
We're
there might be
scheduling
I
next
live.
haven't
week.
scheduled
I think you
any
are next week.
sub jobs for next Thursday.
See, this is
this.
commitment. Okay,
See?
I'm not going to ask it then. Never
Okay.
mind. We're going to wait. Any closing thoughts? Sorry. I totally railroaded that whole thing. Yes.
I've been reminded through this podcast of a C.S. Lewis quote because we love C.S.
We
Lewis.
do love C.S. Lewis. My dog's named Lewis.
I love that.
for great reasons. Shine not so that others can see you, but so that through you they can see him.
Yes.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
What?
I think that's so. I just am so excited about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
You guys should be best friends.
I know we should
guys-
totally be best friends.
You guys should all be best friends.
We'll just
you guys
say
can
it.
do a girls
It's done.
trip.
It's done.
Okay,
We
great.
just
Cool.
declared it to be so.
I love
Yep.
it. All about
Um,
it. For me, I think the way I'm wrapping my head around this is just we can see God on the move. And I've had several people tell me, like, I'm just excited to be a part of what God's getting ready to do. And what a great way to step into what God is getting ready to do and is already doing
Yeah.
than to put the next chapter title on it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like a
you've
chapter
got
title,
to
you're
turn
right.
the page to the next chapter, and the next chapter's not titled the same thing.
Yes.
So I'm looking
fair.
forward
That's
to
good.
being a part of what God is getting ready to do at Freedom House.
Yep. It's weird to hear other people say it. 'Cause-
That's why when you said
yeah.
it earlier, it's like when other people say it, you're like, oh,
Yep.
it makes me excited.
Yep. Well, we love you guys.
We also Heart Freedom House.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
do.
Yes.
I love it. We've gone a long time. Thanks for going on this journey with us. Check us out this week on YouTube. We'll be right here next week for the podcast. We're going to talk about week 2 of Heart of the House. And if you get a moment, check out freedomhouse.church. All right. We love you guys. See ya. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. For more information, visit madisonpark.church.